Hi, welcome. Thanks for being here today. I wanted to chat a little bit today about the victim frequency, living in this pattern of the mindset of being a victim and responding to everything in life as being a victim, which is very much a pattern that many of us have learned. And I wanted to chat about this today as this is actually part of one of the courses that I have available, and the course is called The Embodied Manifestor. And it's really about the nervous system and rewiring your nervous system so that you can be more embodied and conscious human. And it's somewhere in the information that I have as one of the links, as one of the courses that I have. So if you're interested, and this is one of the sections, and there's 4 modules, and it's a course that you can do at your own pace. And it was originally recorded as 4 weeks. So just a little information on that. So victim frequency, right? It's where we unconsciously operate from a disempowered state that keeps us stuck in patterns of lack, limitation, and very much reactive living. And we've all done it. We've all been there, and we still might be there unconsciously way more than we need to be. And so that's why I put these courses and this information together so that I can help as many people as possible to get out of these states, and really to create a new state. And I actually don't even like the way I say that, to get out of something, but it's really to become conscious so that we can choose a different state to be in. And I really believe that understanding and healing victim frequency is essential for having a more embodied life. And, because creation of what we want really requires us to be in our sovereign power, as we are really the authors of our reality, right? We're always creating our reality by the choices we make, by the perception that we choose to have. So we're always creating everything. So let's understand a little bit about victim frequency. And it's believing, first of all, that your well-being, that your success and your happiness depends primarily on the external circumstances or other people's actions. So we externalize this power, right? We believe that it's everything about the external world is how we can actually be successful. Secondly, we very much get into reactive living when we're in this victim frequency. So we're constantly responding to life from a place of defense or blame, rather than conscious choice. So it's that, very reactionary place that we tend to live from, because it's a learned behavior, of course. Also, there's the chronic stress pattern. So when we're constantly living in stress, because we believe that that's what life is, so we live in that fight, flight, or freeze mode, that sympathetic part of our nervous system that basically is always turned on, and that we're always scanning the external environment for threats and problems. So staying in that chronic stress pattern. You also will have, with victim frequency, a scarcity mindset. So operating from the belief that there isn't enough time, money, love, opportunities, just that everything, there isn't enough, right? And you can just watch the language and the words that you use to describe anything in your day and notice if you're always coming from a place of lack, or coming from a place of struggle, competition. You have to compete in order to survive. This is that mindset of the victim frequency. And there's also a sense of powerlessness. So feeling at the mercy of circumstances, genetics, the economy, other people's moods, bad luck, right? So really giving up your power. And, we have all learned this behavior essentially as a survival mechanism. However, when we remain in this frequency, it becomes the very thing that actually blocks, your ability to manifest and create more of what you want from an authentic power. And so, and then the other thing that's happening is your nervous system doesn't distinguish between a real threat and a perceived one. And so when you're operating from victim frequency, your nervous system is constantly being activated in this survival mode. And this creates just blocks and delays, I think, to manifestation, slowing everything down because we're in the survival mode all the time. So let's look at some ways that we can recognize that victim frequency in your life. Because sometimes, I think sometimes if, we're told that we are having a victim mindset, it can actually be very triggering, because when we hear that word victim, nobody wants to be called that. And so it's very triggering for people, and they don't want to hear or think that they're actually a victim. But because the word has such a strong connotation, but there's just these subtle ways that we're actually acting and believing that we are a victim that we don't see in our everyday language. And so some of the words are things like, I can't because, if only they would, I have to, it's not fair, I'm stuck because, and I don't have a choice. So, there's a lot of the language that we use, right? It's part of our everyday. And in order to start to change victim frequency, we need to become aware of our language and all the times that we're basically saying, I can't. And recognizing that first, so that then you can choose differently. And then if we look at our emotions, there's this chronic resentment or anger at circumstances, feeling overwhelmed by life's demands, persistent anxiety about the future, helplessness in the face of challenges, and envy of others who seem to have it easier, right? So those are the emotions. And let's look at the behaviors also that, the kind of the victim frequency will be in. And the first one to really start to look at is the complaining. So the chronic, constant complaining without taking action. We're going to complain here and there. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. But if we're chronically complaining and not doing anything about it, then we're stuck in a behavior of a victim frequency. Also waiting for the permission or the right circumstances in order to do things. So this constant waiting, avoiding responsibility, and it's your own emotional state of where you're coming from. So you're avoiding things. Constantly seeking validation or rescue from others, right? That also puts you into a victim frequency. And procrastinating on important dreams or goals, like really, really strong procrastination. We all procrastinate here and there, but if we can pull ourselves out of it, then we're moving out of that victim frequency. And so how does this actually show up in the body? Well, of course, it's going to show up as tension, right? Depending on where you hold it, a lot of people hold in their shoulders and their jaw, like clenching. A lot of people grind their teeth at night. Shoulders that are always up, not relaxed. Shallow breathing or holding your breath without even recognizing that, which is why breath work, conscious breaths during the day are so important. A body language that is a bit defensive, I would say, like crossing of the arms a lot, like kind of clenching forward, that hunched kind of feeling. That's the collapse posture. Digestive issues, or immune system problems, so a weak immune system. This can also point to someone that is chronically in a victim mindset. And just fatigue, general fatigue all the time that doesn't improve with some sort of proper rest, right? This is the whole system constantly being in fight or flight and is always being vigilant. So there's no energy for other things in life, right? And to create, to be sovereign, to take self-responsibility. So, in saying that, let's move on to what would be a more embodied response from someone who's moving out of that victim state. And there's some key principles. And I would say, one, you're taking self-responsibility, right? You're taking full ownership of your emotional state, your energy, your response to life. And this doesn't mean that you're to blame for what happens to you, but you're responsible for how you meet it and how you move forward. Secondly, always looking at response versus reaction. We can't do this perfectly every time, but learning to pause between those moments where we want to react, and can we pause and then have a response, a more conscious response. Sometimes in the moment, that's harder to do, especially with people that could trigger us. But let's start practicing that when, let's say, we're texting or we're writing, and we can actually pause and think about before we write, how do I want to respond in this situation? Do I want to respond from my wounded self, my childhood wounds, whatever it is, or do I want to respond from my higher self, from the place that I want to be in, the place that I am aspiring, to be more peaceful, more present. So responding from that state. And, recognizing that your peace, your joy, and your sense of empowerment actually really come from within, and it's not from external validation of circumstances. So it's really important for us to really start to understand that really we're the ones creating everything all the time, and no one's responsible for how we feel. We are the ones responsible for how we feel, for our peace, for our joy. Others are not responsible for that. That's the real truth. And once you really understand that, this becomes easier. And then understanding that you are really like the guardian of your own energy field, and that you have the right and the responsibility to protect and direct that at all times. So let's look at maybe some ways, practices for during the day to shift your frequency. And I think the most important really is in the morning upon waking, is to consciously start your day with the intention of how you want the day to be, right? And so if we wake up feeling scattered and kind of jump into things with an energy of we're behind, then that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the day. So if we can really wake up more slowly and consciously, and this really doesn't have to take that much time, like 5 or 10 minutes to just sit, breathe, close your eyes, go outside, do some stretching, say hello to the day, set some intentions for the day and how you want the day to be, how you want to feel in that day. Visualize yourself maybe going through part of your day and how you want to move through that day. You can even intend, let's say, just the morning part. If the whole day is too much, just intend for the morning part. And there's many ways that we can have a morning practice, of course, but this really sets the tone for your nervous system and for your day to have that specific intention. And using, I think, breath and using movement is really important, and a couple of minutes of meditation, right? And that just means a couple minutes of closing your eyes, centering yourself, coming into your heart, breathing into your heart, and then maybe also setting that intention that you are going to today really catch yourself in any victim thinking. So you can just set a general intention that today I will watch out for whatever you're working on that day, right? And any time that it comes into your field that your system wants to respond as a victim, And you're going to just set that intention for yourself that how can I respond differently today? I will look at all my actions today and see if there's another way that I want to respond that's more empowered, that's more centered, that's more grounded. So that's also something as you go through your day that you'll be paying attention to. And then I think what's important is at night is also to reflect on how the day went, how were the different goals that you wanted to move through today. How was your energy today? How did you feel? Listing the things just in your mind or writing out, today was a good day and it was a good day because of, XYZ. I saw that I did a couple of these things today and I let that go and I have forgiveness and compassion for myself. And I will, in any way reframe that for next time if that comes up, right? This kind of reflection at the end of the day helps with really putting you into a peaceful, calm state before going to sleep. And then you can, and even if there was anything challenging in that day, because that happens, you can even ask for that to be worked through within your dreams and within your subconscious. So you could give it to your subconscious right before you fall asleep and ask that it be released, let go, and shown to you in a different light for next time if there was a challenging experience or moment that you had. So those are just a few things to touch upon that victim frequency that I think many of us live through, have learned to live through, that have learned that that's just the way life is to constantly be blaming, complaining, disempowering ourselves. And we don't have to do that anymore, right? We can become conscious and awake and realize that we're creating everything at every now moment. And so, core principles always apply is to keep coming back to the present moment, to take a few deep breaths and to make a choice for the next moment of how do I want to be, right? Because we're always just living in the present moment. The present moment is really the only place that exists, and it's where everything changes when we can live more in that present moment and start to disengage from the victim patterns, the victim mindset, the victim frequency. And so if you want more help with this, I am here for one-on-one sessions. And as I mentioned, I have a course called the Embodied Manifestor. It's about rewiring your nervous system for a more embodied state, for taking self-responsibility and to really empower yourself to live the life that you want. Thanks for being here. I'll see you on the next one.